Hi, my name is Marcus Villarreal, and this is my learning experience presentation. The learning experience that I've chosen to attend for my paper is yoga and specifically how it relates to embodied learning and enhanced cognition. Throughout my presentation, I will explain what embodied learning is, as well as what yoga is and how it has evolved over the years. I draw the connection between yoga and embodied learning and the range of benefits you can see from engaging in this type of learning. Further, I identify specific learning situations where embodied learning is incredibly effective and some instances where it may be limited. The learning event that I participated in was an hour-long yoga session at my local Gold's Gym. The purpose of this session was to give a general overview of how to incorporate yoga into our lives, as well as teach us different techniques and poses. The way the lesson was structured was with the instructor at the front of the room with other students like myself, facing the instructor and mimicking their poses and techniques in the back of the room. The entire studio was walled with mirrors to allow better mind to muscle connection with the body. And at the start of the yoga session, we warmed up with stretches and the easier yoga poses, such as the downward dog and the mountain pose. After a few warm up sets, we were taught more challenging poses like the cobra pose or the cow face poses, and again ended with easier movements for a cool down. Overall, this experience opened my eyes up to a new practice that can be readily applied to everyday life with little inconvenience. The adult learning theory that I have chosen to explore is embodied learning, which can be defined as learning that involves being attentive to the body and its experiences as a way of knowing. According to the book, embodied knowing can be thought of as knowing without reasoning that transcends the cognitive. Embodied learning can be described in many ways, but to set a foundation of understanding, I bring forth Martha Monroe's article that highlights 9 principles of embodied learning. First, he reveals holistic integration, which can be understood as total body connectivity. This principle allows for the simultaneous presence of both an objective and subjective bodied being, where the one is always present in and because of the other. Next comes organic congruencies and personal uniqueness. Organic congruencies point out the similarities we as humans share with regards to our physical bodies and how we use our bodies to map specific meanings. Personal uniqueness highlights how each of our own unique life experiences play a notable role in each of our respective learning situations. The next principle that follows is sensory awareness. Sensory awareness on the outer level refers to our ability to perceive our physical bodies in relation to the physical space we occupy. Inner sensory awareness refers to one's own sense of being and identity in their environment. The next principle that follows, next principle that I brought forth are that of habitual patterns and repatterning. Habitual patterns emerge through repetitive interaction between the inner and outer self and allow for heightened learning. Repatterning, on the other hand, takes into account the neuroplasticity of our brains and the capacity for us to adapt and make new neural connections in response to new learned events. The last principle that Monroe proposes is that of self-teaching, which can be seen through strong self-reflection skills and the ability to engage in self-directed learning. With regards to yoga, the origin can be traced back to the Himalayas, where sages that were practicing this act spread its doctrines to many different parts of the world, with India being the home where the practice found its fullest expression. One notable role of embodied learning through yoga that is immensely beneficial is learning anatomy and physiology of the body. Philoma Belmer, in her article, goes on to explain how embodied learning stabilizes patterns of connections in the brain. In supporting her claims, the author presents a study that measures the impact of learning leg anatomy in conjunction with yoga. In the study, the students were given information and bone models of the leg anatomy they were going to be studying. The students followed that by participating in yoga poses that involved the specific part of the leg they were studying. After completing an evaluation 1 month later, it was found that 76% of students could successfully relate the anatomy to practice. Overall, I think many people overlook embodied learning and the incredible effects it can have on one's life if regularly practiced. According to Stolz, what leads to this failure of people realizing the benefits come from the restraints placed on the conceptualization of learning, mainly being that learning can be broken down into identifiable and analyzable components, which in the case of embodied learning is not necessarily true. If we as individuals want to take advantage of the most effective means of learning and developing ourselves, it's vitally important to keep an open mind when learning something new like embodied learning.